Shalom, shalom, shalom. This is Daniel John Lee with Torah Restoration Ministries. Oh my goodness, what a day at PSU. First thing I want to dispel though, because I keep getting these false accusations on the internet and at PSU, people saying I'm mentally ill. Folks, go to the Clackamas County Courthouse, look up the records from October 30th, 2012. There was a state licensed therapist named Catherine Melker who saw me for over a year, and she testified under oath in a court of law under the Honorable Judge Norby that I have absolutely no mental illnesses. So PSU students and people on the internet, stop saying that I'm mentally ill. I'm not. I love Yah. All right, with that said, I got to campus around noon. I began to preach, and almost immediately Andrew, who's a very wicked man, he started getting right into my face and reading all the stuff from Daniel Leo and the lies from the other websites and the false accusations, and I just ignored him for the most part and just started preaching. And what was cool is that this wicked psychologist-like lady came up to Andrew and said, "Hey, Andrew, just don't mess with Daniel, he's crazy." And Andrew listened to him. So it's like Yah used the evil to come against the evil so that I could just keep preaching. So I just kept exalting Yahshua, his Torah, stop sinning, stop masturbating, stop looking at pornography, stop having sex outside of marriage, stop lying, cheating, turn your heart to Yahshua. I started just exalting the Torah in all of its fullness. And this crowd began to swell. I mean, I kid you not. It got up to 75, 100 students. And then, about halfway through my preaching, this march of about 400 people started coming across PSU, and they were marching to try to stop violence against Ethiopia or something. And by the Spirit of Yah, I just turned to them, and I stood right in front of their parade as they were marching, and I said, "You guys are preaching against violence against Ethiopia, and yet you guys are still making violence against Yah because you're still sinning. What hypocrites!" And I just preached against them. And then this huge crowd joined my crowd. So now there's like a crowd of like 500 students. And they were trying to have a rally, and then I just started preaching to them. And I said, this is the problem with America. You guys want to fight for these so-called righteous causes, like, standing against violence against Ethiopia, and yet you yourselves are guilty of sin. You yourselves are guilty of waging violence against Yah because you're still masturbating, lying, cheating, stealing, and doing all manner of sin. And a lot of the crowd of this rally began to listen to me. And so there was I literally had a crowd of like 500 people at one point. And then they eventually moved away and went on with their thing. I continued to preach. Brandon and Joshua, the hypocrites, both showed up today. It's like the hypocrites are just gnashing their teeth. Brandon gave me this nice cup of tea again, and I was thankful to him. But then he comes up to me and says, "Look, Daniel, looks like you're being drowned out by this rally," which is total nonsense. So I turned to him and I said, "You're just a hypocrite, Brandon. You're just trying to defeat me." So I rebuked him, and I kicked over his tea. So I said, "Your righteousness is as filthy rags." And then the Spirit of Yah just had me start repeating over and over again, 1 John 3:9. If you love God, you will not sin. If you love Yahshua, you will not sin. You'd rather die than sin. If you truly love Yahshua, you will not sin. Some of these Christians got really upset, like this one girl. Actually, there was a girl who has a grandfather who's a Messianic Jew. I gave her a card, but then she had a friend who came up and said, "Daniel, are you really showing love, And I said, "Where are you a Christian?" And she says, "Yes." And I said, "Well, then why are you disobeying the New Testament?" She said, "What do you mean?" I said, 1 Corinthians 11, 1 Thessalonians 5:17. If you're a Christian obeying the New Testament, you need to put a feminine veil over your hair. And she was like, "What?" And I said, "Don't judge me until you start obeying your own New Testament." And I rebuked her. Another girl tried to get up in front of me, and she was just a pagan, but she was revealing her breasts. And I said, "Stop dressing like a whore." Again, I touched on the topic that 1 Corinthians 9 or 1 Corinthians 6? One of those where it basically says that, women who have sex outside of marriage are whores. Men who have sex outside of marriage are whoremongers. Of course, they got really upset about that. But then toward the end, the hecklers finally dissipated, and I still had a good-sized crowd of maybe 50, 60, even 70 students. But there was a more intimate ring right around me, and I could tell the Spirit of Yah was falling upon these people. And one guy wanted me to read out 1 Corinthians 13, so I did. I read out love, what true charity is, that it's not a feeling, but it's an act of the will. And I showed how I love these students. And then I read 1 John 5, where it says, "Hereby we know what love is, that we keep his commandments." So it was the biggest crowd I'd ever had. I preached until probably about 1:30. I was just so tired because I preached to the biggest crowd I've ever had at PSU, ever. In all my years of being at PSU, I don't think I've ever preached to 500 people. It was awesome. So thank you for your prayers. The revival truly is thundering forth at PSU, and there's no sign of stopping. This is Daniel John Lee with Torah Restoration Ministries. Website's www.spiritandtorah.com. I was anointed for such a time as this.